For Cinderella, it's doomsday. This is RamView.
It's hot out there. Let's blow them off the line of scrimmage. Headline, Los Angeles.
Live from the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Terosian, and this is RamView, the August 28th, 2023 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident? Need help? Got questions? Call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. That's one word, KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair. Having some auto issues? Get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. And of course, by Granite Ridge Christian Camp, a place where your life can change. Yes, it's doomsday for a lot of players. They're going to get cut. It's the Normandy Beach of the football season, right? Because they held back all the cuts that would have happened a couple weeks ago, and everything's happening over the course of the next few days. I think tomorrow is the deadline. Each team has to be at 53, and then all the scrambling begins on who can pick up what and who likes who's leftovers. And we're going to get to that here in a second. Look at some cuts. Look at the Rams cuts so far. But one of the things that really bothered me, and it felt like desperate dead period material, was we are being, how do I say, spoken down to on social media by people about having respect for these players on this hard day. Well, you should have respect for players every day, but we're not supposed to acknowledge, talk about, or speculate on cuts because it's too sensitive. You know, if you're too sensitive to play football, then you shouldn't be playing football. And I hate the softening of the sport by the people who never played the sport or have been wussified by the culture. The players know what they've been getting into. They've been professionals since they were college athletes. The second you get a D2 or a D1 scholarship where you're being rewarded with an education, whether it's a big paycheck or an NIL paycheck or just books and tuition, you become a professional and the world changes. And you know what? When you live in the professional world, they can dispose of you like that. The trade-off is you got a scholarship to go to college. I quote Brian Billick, the former Ravens coach, when he was cutting former Arizona quarterback Ortiz Jenkins in the first episode, I think, of Hard Knocks ever. And as he's cutting him, he says, "Did you get that degree? Because I think you're going to need it," right? Meaning that Jenkins wasn't going to have a professional career. And of course, I think he played one game in Canada and he never played in the NFL. So the players know what they're getting into. They're big boys. You can talk about players getting cut and speculate about cuts all you want. Don't let anyone try to rob you of this aspect of what sport is, okay? The second aspect of desperate dead period material was all the rats jumping off the Rams ship after the 41-0 loss to the Denver Broncos on Saturday night. Yeah, it wasn't fun to watch. It wasn't great. But again, what do you expect? It's preseason. It's preseason. And Siciliano, he didn't call out who was on the field. There were no starters on the field. Couldn't lay the lineup out for you or who was on the offensive line. There, you should be sensitive about that. It's these guys one shot to have their name called on television, and the game announcers can't do enough prep work to let you know who's on the field. But I digress. But Siciliano was careful to remind that the last time the Rams went 0-3 in the preseason, they won the Super Bowl. And why we're getting so uptight about it. And here's something I want to share as everyone was jumping off all the Rams bandwagon, the Stetson Bennett bandwagon. Well, let's look at the defense, okay? I counted about, and I went through the list on who played and who didn't. I counted about 22 different players that played defense for the Rams against Denver the other night. 22 different players took defensive snaps. I might be a little bit off on one or two because there was more special teams, but I counted 22 to be safe. Of the 22 players that the Rams sent out there to play defense against the Denver Broncos on Saturday night, 16 of them were undrafted free agents. 16 of them were undrafted free agents. As of right now, as of when I speak, 6 of those guys have already been cut from the team. So there were 6 players who actually had been drafted by the Rams. Robert Rochelle, Nick Hampton, Daniel Hardy, Ernest Brown, Trey Tomlinson. These guys had DeJuan Johnson. They'd all been drafted by the Rams. But out of all those six right there, of those six guys, the only one even have a sniff at possibly getting a starting job or really seeing significant time on the field this year is Trey Tomlinson. And so the Rams went out there with 16 undrafted free agents and gave up 41 points. And you're asking Stetson Bennett, who did not look great, I understand that, but you're asking Stetson Bennett to line up with Grant Miller, Sean McGinn, who's already been cut, right, and Mike McAllister at center, and you're asking him to, and A.J. Akiri at left tackle, you're asking him to make plays. You're asking anybody to make plays. And, of course, they didn't make plays. I think the Rams did exactly what they wanted to do. They got in and out of camp with preseason without any injury, so it's nothing to get worried about. When they lose to the Cardinals, when they lose, I think, to Indianapolis, that's when you can start looking for a life raft. That's when you can start saying women and children first, let's get off this boat. But not after starting 16 or playing 16 undrafted free agents. Quindell Johnson, who I think had a couple of plays, he played 85 snaps. Jaden Woodby, 74. Tyon Davis, 68. He's gone. Robert Rochelle, who right now looks okay, but boy, he looked terrible on the field. He looks okay in getting a roster spot. He played 56. Sean Jolly, 52. Zach von Valkenburg, 51. Kiliche, Anna not going to work here anymore. The linebacker, number 54, he was cut. He played 49 snaps. So you could see it. They didn't stand a chance, right? The Rams were just getting a final look at some of these guys and making final decisions. And I think the two guys that got the most snaps are the two that I'm most interested in right now, Quindell Johnson and Jaden Woodby. So moving right along to the Rams news, of course, I had Steeler fan in Missouri, Rob, text me, start blowing up because the Steelers and Rams made a trade and they agreed to swap picks. They'll take our fourth, we take their fifth, we take their sixth, they take our seventh, or we take their seventh, they take their sixth, whatever. It's just a swapping of picks to acquire guard Kevin Dotson from the Steelers. Dotson was a fourth round, 130th overall draft pick out of Louisiana. He goes about 6'4", 321. And I don't know what the Rams' plans are with him, but the Steelers must have felt very good about their depth. They do have a good interior line and stuff, but Dotson graded 30th out of 77 graded NFL guards last year, which puts him just a little bit above average. He's in the top 32, right? Or even the top 64. And because every team starts two guards. And he played in every game for the Steelers, over 1,100 snaps or close to 1,100 snaps. Now, PFF grades him as an average run blocker, which was interesting because Steeler fan Rob in Missouri, he was texting me and saying, oh, he's a great road grader. Well, PFF, Pro Football Focus, has him listed as an average run blocker, but excellent in pass protection. And again, that just speaks that we're going to see the Rams try to throw the ball around quite a bit, or at least when they do throw the ball, they want definite protection when Stafford is in that pocket. He could start off as a backup, Dotson, and then be eased into a starting position, or he's just a great insurance piece. I think it's a great deal. I think it's really great. I'm for all kinds of depth on the offensive line. If Alaric Jackson's one left tackle and Havenstein, of course, is the right tackle, Warren McClendon might not be ready to be the swing tackle, maybe not just yet. That looks like it'll be Noteboom's role until, maybe he starts at right guard. Tremaine Ankrum at right guard had a great camp, but he's only started one game. And so, you have to wonder, okay, he's good, but maybe this guy can be a little bit better, or maybe if he gets hurt, he's the step-in piece and it's not Noteboom. So I love the depth. Also, you have to consider Steve Avila. Now, Dotson played left guard last year. Now, Avila looks the part. Everything about Avila looks great. I saw Avila at practice, and just watching him at practice, he's not catching the ball, he's not running the ball. He's a dude out there, and he seems to play with an attitude. he could have some growing pains before he really steps into and solidifies himself as one of the better guards in the NFL. He might have growing pains. Good to have Dotson, right? Good to have Dotson. And so I love the trade. All in all, considering the cost, great deal by the McSnead front office. And it's all about keeping Stafford upright. Does this mean McClendon, Logan Bruss, and we'll have to pass through waivers? I don't think so. I think those guys are going to make the squad, but it's very likely A.J. Akiri, obviously Mike McAllister, Zach Thomas, those guys could be passing through waivers to get to the practice squad. Interesting. I know Steeler fan Rob in Missouri is bragging about how great the deal was because Omar Khan, the Steelers GM, has this idea that the Rams are going to be so bad. He drank the Denver Kool-Aid. He thinks the Rams are going to be so bad they'll win less than 5 games and moves up about 20 spots for a better draft pick. Tim Burns in Rams House, thank you so much for clicking on this hot Southern California day. Okay, around the NFL, cuts, transactions, let's get this stuff done. Names and faces. The Cardinals, just before I went on the air, I was coming on. I actually turned off my computer. That's why I was late and had to reboot it. But as I was doing that, I looked. Colt McCoy got released by the Cardinals. Can they at least pretend for their fan base that they're not tanking terribly? It says they're going to start the season with either Josh Dobbs or Clayton Tune at quarterback. Are you out? Are you insane? Hey, here's a note to Caleb Williams. I know you're going to make big money, and I know you're making a couple mil at USC. But no, I know, Caleb, you watched the show. Caleb, why don't you talk to Lincoln Riley and talk to your boys there and maybe your people, and maybe think about if the Cardinals get the number 1 pick in the draft and you have the year that we think you're going to have, why don't you just say, I'm not playing for the Cardinals? Or maybe I say, if I'm USC, hey, we'll get you some more NIL money. We'll kick it up to 10, 15, whatever we need to. Rocks, I don't know. Is there a limit? And why don't you stick around and be with us that first year we're in the Big Ten and playing all those big boys in the Big Ten? It'd be kind of a really cool thing. And you'd be making some good dough. We'll take an insurance policy out on you. And you don't have to go to the Cardinals. The Cardinals are a curse. Matt Leinart went there. He didn't have a great prospects for an NFL career, but he died in Arizona. Josh Rosen was also a 10th overall pick, as Matt Leinart was. I didn't think he was very good, but he died out there in Arizona. Caleb, you do not want to go to the Cardinals. It's a curse to be a Cardinal. Either go full John Elway 40 years ago, go full Eli Manning 20 years ago, but whatever it is, you can say, I will not play in Arizona. Or just say, I kind of like it here at USC. We're going to the Big Ten. They really need me. I'll get some more dough, NIL. I don't know, maybe win a 3rd Heisman. Maybe I'll stick around and take an insurance policy in case anything else happens. I don't know. The NIL seems to offer just a little bit of, yeah, I know I can get big money in the NFL, but what's big money if you're playing for the Cardinals, right? After I went off the air on Friday, I got the news Trey Lance was traded to the Cowboys. Okay, great. I'm happy for Trey Lance. I'm more than thrilled that the 49ers only got a 4th rounder for him. That's really good. I'm not sold on Brock Purdy. Now, if Brock Purdy flames out, man, that 49ers Super Bowl window just shrinks, and I'm getting kind of excited about what's going to take place there. Raiders, Josh Jacobs finally signed his contract. Good for him. Notice they put UCLA running back, or former UCLA running back, Britton Brown on the IR, and they cut former Cal quarterback Chase Garbers. I thought that was interesting. Speaking of the Raiders, their former 1st-round pick in 2021, Alex Leatherwood, the Raiders version of Bobby Evans, he was cut by the Bears, and so his career looks like it's about over. The Bears also cut P.J. Walker, which kind of surprised me. The Colts cut Kenyon Drake. Kenyon Drake had a nice 7-year career, spent some time with the Raiders, Cardinals, and Ravens, but his career looks like it's winding down. Browns cut wide receiver Anthony Schwartz, who had been on the Rams radar heading into the 21 draft. I think they had some interviews with him, and it didn't look good. The playing time he was getting in the preseason, he was playing late into games, and so they've cut Anthony Schwartz. The Broncos cut Kendall Hinton, which they seem to do every year, but they cut former Ram J.J. Koski. Just that guy keeps hanging around. Good for J.J. Koski, but he's out of work now. Panthers cut Colin Duncan, who was cut by the Rams earlier this year. Vikings cut Jake Gervais, who just signed with them. I thought it was interesting. The Giants cut running back James Robinson. Eagles waived quarterback Ian Book. There was no way with Tanner McKee there he was going to get any PT unless they do something with Marcus Mariota. I'm not real big on Mariota. I think Mariota looks washed, right? 49ers cut Taco Charlton. He was a first-round pick, 28th overall out of Michigan in 2017 with the Cowboys. He's been with the 49ers, the Steelers. He's been everywhere, man. More places than Johnny Cash. And I actually saw somebody saying, hey, maybe the Rams should take a shot at Taco Charlton. No. In this case, I would prefer a burger instead of a taco. Do not get that taco. Bills cut Shane Ray, tried to make a comeback and with the Bills, the former Denver guy, high draft pick, and he got cut, injured cut. It looks like it's over for him. Okay, breaking down the Rams cuts right now. I'm just looking at Tim Burns' thing here. Yeah, I'm not a fan of our DC either. But he did get us a Super Bowl. But yeah, I'm not a fan. I like to see our defense just a little more wrinkles in it. Anyway, Rams cuts. Rams said goodbye today to Lance McCutcheon. And that's not saying any of these guys can't come back to practice squad. But as of right now, the Rams put Lance McCutcheon, last year's winner of the Nelson Spruce Award. He was put in the street. Jordan Jones, who came out playing quite a bit at the beginning of the preseason and then saw his playing time diminish. He was released. Tanner Ingle, who did not play. I think he played some special teams the other night. Played a couple of snaps on defense. Tanner Ingle was released. Again, some of these guys shouldn't be surprised to see them bounce back. Teron Vincent, the Ohio State guy, he was released. Anna Balachi, Anna not going to work here anymore. He was gone. Braxton Burmeister had his 15 minutes last night or Saturday night, and he was put in the street. Guys that you are expecting to go, Tamarcus Davis, Tyon Davis, Vincent Gray, absolutely. They were given the heave-ho. Wide receiver Tyler Hudson, I feel like we never met him. Offensive lineman Sean McGinn. Tight ends Cameron McDonald and Christian Sims. Christian Sims, I really wouldn't be surprised to see on the practice squad. And, of course, linebacker Ryan Smenda Jr. And so let's take a quick break, and then we're just going to keep this thing rolling because I've been going too long in this show. I am Joe Terosian. I was a sports writer, still am kind of for 21 years. And now I do RamView, thanks to my sponsors at Kistler Law and Temple City Auto. I do RamView, and I write books. My books can be found on Amazon. Just type in Joe Terosian, and you will see that right there. And you can support me. All this does to help me support my day job, which I pastor a small church in Burbank called Burbank Faith Nazarene. And you can see us right here on YouTube at our Burbank Faith virtual channel. Okay, moving right along here. On this date in 1967, the Rams sent a linebacker named George Youngblood, no relation to Jack or Jim. He played at Cal State LA, sent him to the Detroit Lions. Actually, I'm sorry, they acquired him from the Detroit Lions. My bad. They acquired George Youngblood from the Detroit Lions, and they sent a third-round pick in 1968's draft to the Lions for Youngblood. Youngblood appeared in 14 games for the Rams, and that was it. Finished his career in 69 with either Philly or New Orleans. Not much to say about George Youngblood. But that third-round pick was used 74th overall in the 1968 draft, and the Detroit Lions grabbed future Hall of Fame tight end Charlie Sanders. That makes you think, right? That sometimes you just throw a draft pick in a trade, and you never know what it's going to lead to. On this date in 1973, one of my favorite Rams was acquired very late in the summer. Charlie Stukes was acquired from the Vikings for a fifth-round pick that really didn't amount to anything for the Vikings. Stukes was 6'3", 212. Is that the kind of cornerback you really would love to have? He had 32 picks in an 8-year career. He had 12 picks with the Rams. I think he registered 4 one year, 7 the next. He started off, his career was always with the Colts. The Colts in the offseason after 72 sent him to the Vikings. And then the Vikings, I guess they were in full support of Nate Wright, Bobby Bryant, and all those guys. They shipped him off to the Rams, and the Rams had a starting corner out of that for a 5th-round draft pick. And he really solidified that secondary with Eddie McMillan, Steve Priest, and Dave Elmendorf. Al Clark, I guess, would have been considered the nickel guy. But Stukes was a physical corner, and you really appreciated him. He'd been in 2 Super Bowls with the Colts, got a ring in 70, played really well for the Rams, but late, a week before the season, about 10 days before the season, he blew out his knee in 75 and had surgery and was lost for the year. Tried to come back and was waived early in 76. I think that was in July of 76, but then his career was over. He had 28 games for the Rams, 28 starts, had a really nice career. And I'd do anything for a Charlie Stukes these days. He was one of my favorite Ram players. On this day in 1974, the Rams traded Harry Shue to the Packers for a 6th-round pick. On this day in 1994, the Rams released Cleveland Gary and Mark Boutte. Remember those guys? And then on this day, it looked like the end. In 1995, the Rams released former UCLA quarterback Tommy Maddox. Now, Maddox had been that #1 draft pick of the Broncos. The Broncos always kind of reach for those guys. I think Maddox was drafted in what? Was it 91? He was drafted 92. I think he was drafted, had 2 seasons in Denver. They cut him loose, and then the Rams signed him. It reminds me of Tim Tebow getting 2 seasons in Denver. But Maddox just never panned out. When he signed with the Rams, people were all excited that he signed with the Rams, and then it just didn't work out. He got released. He bounced around, ended up in the XFL, and it was really interesting. That one year, the initial run of the XFL took place. I actually covered that for a website, and I saw him play for the LA Extreme, and I think he was the least most valuable player, and they won the title. Yeah, Tommy Maddox bounced back, and the next thing you know, I think he took the job from Cordell Stewart, and he was the last Pittsburgh starting quarterback before Ben Roethlisberger took over. And it's interesting. I think he wore number 8, and I think that's Kenny Pickett's number for the Steelers now. Every time I see him, I'm thinking Tommy Maddox, right? And then on this day in 1999, the Wally Pipp moment for the Rams. Trent Green was declared out for the season. He had the serious knee injury, which opened the door for that guy. What's his name? Oh, yeah. Stetson Bennett. No, he wore 13. John Wolford. No, he wore 13 too. Why are these guys wearing 13? For Kurt Warner. And the greatest show on turf was born. Okay, let's look at the regular season here as we hit the 22-minute mark. Thank you so much for clicking on. Please hit like and subscribe. I'm very encouraged by my audience this afternoon. The Steelers in Week 7 are coming to Los Angeles to play the Rams on October 22nd. Right now, I have the Rams standing at 3-3. I see them. I saw them losing in Seattle. I saw them losing to Frisco, and I saw them losing on Monday night in Cincy. My friend Steve Ramirez, a fellow sports writer, convinced me to go with the Rams over the Bengals if Joe Burrow doesn't play. And so I gave the Rams the win in Cincy. That's a real reach on my part. I also gave them wins in Indy, and I gave them a win over the Cardinals. In fact, if they don't beat the Cardinals, I said somebody should be fired. And maybe somebody should be suspended if they don't beat the Cardinals with a 40 burger, right? But now they're 3-3, and they're playing the Steelers, and there is no way. I do not see any way, shape, or form, and I know Steeler fan Rob in Missouri is really thrilled about this. I do not see any way, shape, or form the Rams beating the Steelers. They replaced Cam Sutton with Patrick Peterson. They brought in their draft picks. They got Isaac Seumalo from the Eagles, so they've shored up that interior offensive line. They drafted Darnell Washington. Broderick Jones. They look really good. And then of course they got Minkah Fitzpatrick and Joey Porter. And everything. We know that. TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Cam Hayward, right? We get that. And that's going to be really tough for the Rams. Now, offensively, we like to make fun of Kenny Pickett's hands. Everyone has, but let's just be honest. Kenny Pickett's played well. I'm not saying he's great, but he's played well. And aren't interior lines going to protect him up front? I think they're a little susceptible on the wings, but it's not like they're bad on the wings at the tackle spots. the Steelers are going to be good. Najee Harris at running back, the underrated tight end Pat Fryermuth at tight end, and then of course George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, and a resurgent Allen Robinson. I'm as pro Ram as anybody, right? And there's nothing I love to see is to be proven wrong. But I do not see the Rams winning this game. In fact, I see the Rams falling to 3-4, and then it's on to Dallas the next week for Week 8. But yeah, I do not see the Rams beating the Steelers in a recap of the season, which we'll just continue to keep doing before we wrap up here. We'll check it. It was a stone groove, and we're not done yet. But in a quick recap here, I do see the Rams playing well in Seattle, but, Jackson Smith-Njigba is out. Jamal Adams likely won't be on the field. They've got other injuries. They've been banged up a little bit. I think the Rams have a shot in Seattle. I just don't see them winning. I see them, if this game at SoFi was being played in the back half of the season, I think the Rams defense will be ready for the 49ers, and I think the offense will be ready. I don't see the Rams beating the 49ers just yet. I'd like to, I'm not completely sold on Brock Purdy, but there's a whole lot more to this team than Brock Purdy. By the time the Rams face them in Week 18 game, the 17th game of the season, I think they could be banged up because the 49ers are always banged up, but I do see them starting 0-2. The Cincy game, man, that's just a tough one. I still want to lean Bengals, but I'm going with my friend Steve to stick with that one. And then we've got the Colts. And everyone's high on Anthony Richardson, but the Colts still have to find a way to stop the Rams, and I don't think they're going to. They lost their best corner because he was gambling and got suspended. They put him in the street, and they made some draft choices, but it's not going to work right now. I think it's Emmanuel Forbes. Is it Emmanuel Forbes? I get the corners mixed up. Or is Emmanuel Forbes in Washington? But I see the Rams winning there. I don't see them competing with the Eagles. I see them beating the Cardinals. And again, the Cardinals are awful. The Seahawks could be vulnerable. And of course, if Brock Purdy flashes and fails, then that changes everything going forward. It really does. And I'm one of those folks that say the low end for the Rams is 7-10. High end, I could see them winning 9 games. And because the NFC is so bad, there is a chance they could make the playoffs. And I think the trade for Kevin Dotson, that's not a white flag. That to me is telling me, hey, you know what? We think we got a shot, and we just want to keep our quarterback upright. You would say an overachieving offensive line and Aaron Donald won. You know what? I agree with you, Tim. But you know what? Which led the Rams. I'm reading Tim Burns' comment here. I got to go. But one of the things I will say is that Matthew Stafford, with no one to throw to but Bryson Hopkins, Ben Skoranek, and that dude Cooper Kupp, right? Throwing no-look passes. It was next level. And that's why I will always be a Matthew Stafford fan. Okay, we hit the 28-minute mark. We are ready to go. It was a stone groove. Thank you so much for clicking on. Thank you so much for the support. And we are going to get out of here right now while the getting is good. Again, please hit like, subscribe. I know we got some new watchers out there. Thank you for clicking on. And we will be back. I'm actually playing with doing a show tomorrow because so much is happening in terms of the waiver wire and everything. There's just so much good stuff to talk about. So until then, thank you. Go Rams, and I will see you hopefully manana.